Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one.
In 1865, a photograph captured a young William Buffalo Bill Cody at 19 years old, long before he became one of the most iconic figures of the American Wild West. At that time, Cody had already begun to forge his legend, although he was still in the early stages of his extraordinary life. Before becoming famous as a showman and founder of the Buffalo Bills Wild West, a spectacle that captivated audiences worldwide and helped shape the international image of the American West. Now, in this other image, we can see him older, holding a rifle. In the background are the tents of his famous Wild West show. Buffalo Bill founded the Buffalo Bills Wild West show, which brought the stories and culture of the American frontier to audiences in America and Europe. His spectacle included reenactments of battles, horse races, and demonstrations of shooting skills, and featured characters such as cowboys, Native Americans, and bandits. Billy the Kid, one of the most famous outlaws of the Wild West, was born in 1859 in New York. Still young, he left the city in search of a new life and ended up venturing into the West. Billy the Kid quickly gained fame as an outlaw, involved in cattle rustling, robberies, and shootouts. His ability to escape authorities and his boldness gave him a legendary reputation. Despite his short life, which ended at 21 when he was killed by Sheriff Pat Garrett, Billy the Kid left his mark on American history. Now, in this historic image taken in 1877, he appears dressed in a white shirt, dark vest, and top hat to the left of the table, engaged in a tense card game with members of his gang. All four men keep their hands carefully hiding their cards, while on the table, we see an almost empty bottle of liquor. Billy the Kid escaped from jail twice. The first time, he killed 2 guards before fleeing. The second time, he dug a hole in the cell wall using only a spoon. Although known as a bandit, Billy the Kid had a charismatic personality and many friends. He was particularly close to Sheriff Pat Garrett before they became enemies. Meanwhile, Pat Garrett is remembered as the man who killed the famous Outlaw. As the sheriff of Lincoln County, New Mexico, Garrett stood out for his determination to capture Billy the Kid, at the time one of the most infamous criminals of the Wild West, as mentioned earlier. After an intense pursuit, Garrett tracked down Billy the Kid and killed him on July 14, 1881, in Fort Sumner. The death of the young outlaw brought fame to Garrett, but also involved him in controversies, as many saw Billy the Kid as a charismatic and almost heroic figure. Annie Oakley grew up in a humble family and faced many challenges from an early age. As a child, she developed impressive shooting skills, which helped support her family through hunting. Annie's talent soon attracted the attention of the legendary Buffalo Bill, who invited her to join his famous show, the Buffalo Bills Wild West. Annie Oakley was the stage name of Phoebe Ann Mosey from Ohio, whose skill with a gun was discovered when she was 15 and beat a traveling marksman in a shooting competition. She eventually became a famous sharpshooter in her own right, thanks to her ability to thrill audiences with her daring feats. Annie Oakley was one of the first women to compete professionally in a male-dominated sport. Jesse James, the famous outlaw of the Wild West, he was not just a criminal, but also one of the most wanted men of his time. Born in 1847, he became known for robbing banks and trains and for his ability to escape the authorities. James led the James Younger Gang and became a legendary and feared figure. Now, in this image captured in 1875, the feared outlaw poses for a photo. Gang leader, bank and train robber, and murderer Jesse James became a living legend with a large reward for his capture. In 1882, his life of crime was abruptly ended when he was betrayed and killed by Robert Ford, a member of his own gang. Another woman of prominence is Calamity Jane, depicted here with a rifle during her time as a scout for General Crook. Born Martha Canary, she became an iconic figure of the Wild West, known both for her skills as a scout and her unconventional lifestyle. Jane was famous for wearing men's clothing and for her prowess with weapons, which was crucial in her missions. Now, in this image captured around 1882, we see her posing with her rifle for a photo. Celebrated for her bravery and skill in riding and shooting during the days of the Gold Rush and in Dakota, Calamity Jane is considered one of the legendary women of the American Wild West. After Wild Bill's death, Calamity Jane visited his grave in South Dakota several times. The photo in question shows her at Wild Bill's grave in 1903, years after his death. One of the most well-known stories involving Jane and her relationship with Wild Bill was that the two met in 1876 and supposedly had a romance, although some historians question the veracity of these accounts. Pearl Hart, known for her daring stagecoach robberies, was a fearless woman who achieved celebrity status in the Wild West. Despite her fame as a thief, Pearl was not always involved in serious crimes. Coming from a wealthy and well-educated family, her life took an unexpected turn after suffering physical abuse from her husband. Pearl Hart planned and executed a daring stagecoach robbery in Arizona. Wearing men's clothing and demonstrating audacity and courage, she surprised everyone and became a well-known outlaw, attracting the attention of authorities and the media. Here is the cast of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, composed of a diverse group of performers who helped recreate and dramatize life on the American frontier. The cast included skilled cowboys like Buck Taylor, sharpshooters like Annie Oakley, and even Native Americans such as the famous Sioux Chief Sitting Bull. Buffalo Bill's biggest attraction was his cowboys and their reenactments of shootouts. The truth is that many of the cowboys in the Wild West show were real professionals who worked as hunters, lawmen, or even criminals before joining the show. These cowboys were so good that Buffalo Bill paid them very well. In fact, many of the show's cowboys never had to worry about financial problems because of the money they earned. James Butler Hickok, known as Wild Bill, was a legendary hero of the Wild West, famous for his diverse activities as a soldier, lawman, and gunslinger. With his exceptional skill with firearms and courage, he participated in Buffalo Bill's Wild West show. Wild Bill was killed in Deadwood while playing poker. A man named Jack McCall entered the saloon and, without warning, shot Hickok in the back, killing him instantly. The hand of cards he was holding at the moment of his death, 2 aces and 2 eights, all black, became known as the dead man's hand. In the photo, Buck Taylor, the king of the cowboys, wearing his Wild West showman attire. He was one of the stars of Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, where he stood out for his riding performances and roping skills. Buck Taylor helped shape the image of the cowboy in the popular imagination, combining the frontier lifestyle with entertainment. This is the Cosmopolitan Saloon and Gambling Hall in Telluride, Colorado in 1910, which was a central meeting point for the local population and visitors to the city. Located in the heart of Telluride, a city known for its natural beauty, the Cosmopolitan was not just a saloon but a true social and cultural center of the community. Belle Starr, the infamous bandit queen of the Wild West, was captured in Fort Smith, Arkansas in 1886. Known for her life of crimes that included horse theft, robberies, and involvement with other outlaws, Belle openly defied authorities and became a legendary figure of the era. Here we see the famous Texas Rangers displaying their weapons and highlighting their role as guardians of the frontier. The force was unofficially created by Stephen Austin in 1823 and officially organized in 1835. Since then, the Rangers have gained a historic reputation for pursuing fugitives, combating invasions, and maintaining order along the borders. In the photo, we see a cowboy mounted on his horse at the edge of a cliff in Monument Valley. This beautiful setting, known for its immense rock formations and stunning landscapes, is one of the most iconic locations of the American West. Monument Valley became a popular site for classic Hollywood films depicting the Wild West. Kitty Wilkins, known as the Horse Queen of Idaho, was a notable horse trader for being the only American woman whose income depended exclusively on the sale of her horses. She had impressive success, selling 8,000 horses to a buyer who sent them to the British Army for use in the Boer War. In the photo, the Rufus Buck Gang, whose 5 members were executed in Fort Smith, Arkansas in July 1896. This mass execution is notable for being one of the largest ever recorded in the United States for violent sexual crimes. The gang was responsible for a series of violent crimes, including sexual assaults and robberies, which led to a strong reaction from the authorities. The card game called Faro was one of the favorite pastimes in the Wild West. If you did not play, it was hard to be seen as a real cowboy. Much like poker, Faro involved luck and was a popular form of leisure, as we can note by the men in the photo. Olive Ann Oatman was kidnapped in 1851 in what is now Arizona by an unknown Native American tribe. After the abduction, she was sold to the Mojave tribe, who kept her for 5 years and, following their traditions, tattooed her face with blue pigment. After being released, Olive returned to white society, where her story attracted much attention. She became a public figure and shared her experiences in the book Life Among the Indians, published in 1857. Rose Dunn, known as the Rose of Cimarron, was a young girl of just 15 who became famous for her connection with the Doolin-Dalton Gang, a group of bank and train robbers active in the 1890s. She was guilty only of enjoying the company of bandits and having a close relationship with one of the gang members. It is said that during a shootout between the gang and law enforcement, Rose ran under crossfire to bring weapons and ammunition to the bandits. In the photo, we see 2 prostitutes from Alaska during the gold rush. The women who went to places like Dawson City or Ketchikan faced extremely dangerous journeys to reach Alaska, often spending months on difficult crossings. Many of them sought new opportunities amid the mining boom, where they could make a living in saloons and entertainment houses that sprang up in prosperous towns. The Dodge City Peace Commission, formed in June 1883. Dodge City was known as one of the most lawless towns of the Wild West, where fights, shootouts, and disorder were frequent. To restore safety and order, notorious figures like Wyatt Earp and Bat Masterson joined forces to create the Peace Commission. The commission gathered experienced men who worked together to control violence and impose rules in the city. Photograph taken around 1869, showing a Native American observing a newly completed transcontinental railroad in the American state of California. For some, the railroad was a symbol of modernity and national progress. For others, however, the railroad meant the diminishing sovereignty of native nations and the destruction of indigenous communities and their cultures. Photograph taken in 1904 showing a group of Navajo Native Americans crossing the Rio Grande in the American state of Arizona. Before Mexicans, these Chinese railroad workers were the most hated immigrants in the West. They earned $1 per day, while white workers earned about $2.50. Moreover, they had to set up their own camps and provide their own food, while all this was provided for the white workers. This photograph illustrates the harsh reality of Chinese workers, whose contribution to building the railroads was invaluable despite the unfair treatment and discrimination they faced. Photograph of gunslinger and Sheriff Bill Hickok in 1873. Known for his skill with firearms and his role in numerous violent confrontations, Hickok became a legendary figure whose fame endures to this day. A photo of American General George Custer in 1863. General George is known for his participation in the Civil War on the western frontier, where he and his troop were defeated by Native American tribes. Seth Kinman, a skilled hunter of the Wild West, was known for his abilities. He had the honor of meeting President Andrew Johnson. He decided to present the president with something unique and special, creating a truly extraordinary chair for him. The piece was made with elk antlers and bearskin, giving it a rustic and impressive look. The tranquil life of Johnson was interrupted when his wife was brutally killed by a warrior of the Crow tribe. Consumed by grief and anger, Johnson swore revenge and embarked on a dark journey to punish all members of the Crow tribe he encountered. During his vengeance, he became known throughout the Wild West as Liver-Eating Johnson for his brutal practice of killing, scalping, and devouring the livers of his enemies. One of the most famous bandits in American history, Butch Cassidy, whose real name was Robert Leroy Parker, was born in Utah in 1866. He became famous for leading the group of bandits known as the Hole-in-the-Wall Gang, which specialized in train and bank robberies, but what made him so famous was his ability to escape the law. An interesting character, Judge Roy Bean, known as the Law West of the Pecos, was known for being an eccentric man with a strong temper, often judging cases under the influence of alcohol. He boasted of having been appointed judge by the President of the United States himself, although the story is contested by historians. Mountain men were hunters and explorers who lived in mountainous and rural areas of the American West. They were known for being very skilled in hunting and surviving in wild and hostile environments. A unique moment of the American Civil War. In the image, we can see an American soldier clowning for the camera, around 1863. This photo is one of the rarities that allow us to see a bit of humanity and humor that still existed amid the chaos of war. A photo taken in 1871 by William Henry Jackson in Nebraska showing the Native American leader Petalacharo. At the time this photo was taken, indigenous tribes were facing many challenges, including loss of territories and the threat of forced assimilation. Wyatt Earp, one of the most famous names of the American Wild West. He moved west at age 21 in search of adventures and opportunities. He worked as a miner, merchant, and eventually became one of the most well-known lawmen of the West. Earp is known for his participation in some of the most violent conflicts of the time, such as the gunfight at the OK Corral in 1881 in Tombstone, Arizona. Cathay Williams, a woman born into slavery, made history by disguising herself as a man and enlisting in the United States Army in 1866. She became the first African-American woman to serve as a Buffalo Soldier. Williams served in the Army until 1868, when the Army surgeon discovered her true identity. She was discharged for medical reasons and was subsequently dismissed. General George Crook, one of the most well-known military leaders of the 19th century. Crook joined the United States Army in 1852 and served in several campaigns during the American Civil War. After the war, he was assigned to lead military campaigns against American Indian tribes in the West, becoming one of the main military commanders of the period. Clay Allison, rancher and former Confederate soldier, was one of the most dangerous and unpredictable figures of his time. Known for his explosive temper, Allison was involved in several gun and knife fights, both with civilians and the law. His fame for recklessness was so great that on one occasion he even shot himself in the foot accidentally. Despite his violent nature and reputation as a feared gunslinger, he followed his own moral code, reflected in the inscription on his tombstone. He never killed a man who did not need killing. The girls in the photo are known as rodeo cowgirls or rodeo queens. These women defied the norms of their time by competing in riding events, target shooting, and other skills traditionally dominated by men. One of the most famous cowgirls was Annie Oakley, mentioned earlier. At that time, any drink was not cheap, especially the famous rotgut liquor, a low-quality beverage known for its strong taste and unpleasant effects. To increase profits, bar owners used to dilute better quality liquor with ingredients like ammonia and turpentine, creating cheaper but potentially dangerous mixtures. Would you face a drink like that? Fur shop in Juneau, Alaska, around 1890. At that time, fur shops represented a crucial pillar of the local economy and daily life. The furs, obtained through hunting and trade with indigenous peoples, were essential for survival in Alaska's extremely cold climate and became one of the region's first export products. Around 1890, in the heart of Colorado, a photograph captures a singular moment in the life of a group of miners and their faithful dog, posing in front of their rustic cabin. Drumlummen Mine, located near Marysville, Montana, was one of the most productive and famous gold and silver mines in the state, especially in the late 1880s. Discovered by Thomas Cruise in 1876, the mine quickly became the center of bustling mining activity, driving the economic growth of the region and the formation of the Marysville community. Virginia City, Nevada, 1875. A vivid image of the Wild West in full swing. Seen from above, the city unfolded in a fascinating maze of houses and establishments, cut by dusty streets that told stories of hope, despair, and adventure. Here we explore an unusual tradition of the Wild West around the year 1900. Women would kneel before their husbands, asking forgiveness for the various mistakes and annoyances caused during the year. This practice reflects the social and gender norms of the time, where women often assumed a submissive role in family dynamics. Here is cowboy Nat Love, around 1900. Nat Love was one of the most famous African-American cowboys of the Wild West. Born into slavery in 1854 in Tennessee, he gained freedom after the Civil War and ventured west in search of a different life. Love quickly stood out as a talented cowboy, participating in rodeo competitions where he earned the nickname Deadwood Dick after winning a major rodeo in Deadwood in 1876. The interior of a saloon in the state of Utah, where one of the customers decided to pose for an unusual photograph with his horse around 1880. Criminal James Miller in 1886. He was a hired assassin who earned between $150 to $2,000. He usually sought his victims at night, wearing a black coat to avoid being easily detected. It is believed that he killed about 12 people during shootouts. Miller ended up being lynched by an angry mob when he killed a United States Marshal. Geronimo, leader of the Apaches, guided his tribe with courage and determination during intense conflicts with the government and settlers. Known for his guerrilla tactics and fierce resistance, Geronimo fought to protect the lands and culture of the Apaches against the expansion of the United States. His struggle continued until his final surrender in 1886, when he and his followers gave up after several battles and pursuits. This photo shows a unique moment in the history of stagecoaches. The Deadwood stagecoach was known as one of the safest and best protected vehicles of the time. This was because it transported mail, gold, and other valuable objects, making it an easy target for criminals. But the stagecoach was very well armed, with a team of brave and skilled men ready to defend the vehicle and its passengers at all costs. The Hatfield family was a typical family of the American Wild West. They left their mark on history through a photograph taken in 1888, where they appear together displaying their pride and unity. The Hatfield photograph still allows us to delve into the history of the Wild West. Rodeos were popular events, bringing together people of all ages to celebrate the culture of the Wild West and watch exciting performances. In this rodeo in California, the audience was amazed by the extraordinary feat of a woman and her horse jumping over a convertible. The Oklahoma Land Run, known as the Land Run of 1889, took place at noon on April 22, 1889. Around 50,000 people gathered at the border of the Oklahoma Territory to claim portions of the 2 million acres of land that were open for settlement. A group of men in front of a saloon in Miles City, in the American state of Montana, in 1880. Life was hard on the frontier. After a day of hard work, there was not much to do but drink and chat, as seen here. Columns of cavalry, artillery, and wagons commanded by General George Custer crossing the plains of the Dakota Territory during the 1874 expedition. Lawmen posing for a photo with their weapons in the state of Oklahoma in 1890. The lawmen of the Wild West were responsible for maintaining order in the towns and villages of the American West. They were seen as heroes, representing law and justice in a time of uncertainty and rapid changes on the western frontier. A cowboy displays his impressive lasso skills for the camera in the state of Oklahoma around 1900. Men gambling in a bar in the state of Arizona in 1895. This photo depicts the more relaxed and sociable side of life in the Wild West, where saloons were centers of entertainment and camaraderie for men seeking to escape the hardships of daily life. Photo of the city of Deadwood in the state of South Dakota. The main street is crowded with people and wagons, marking the early steps of this iconic Wild West town. Deadwood later became immortalized in countless Western films and series. The year is 1907, and life in the American Wild West was quite different from what we know today. A very special cow became the heroine of the story. Every day, she had the important mission of taking 7 children to school. Have you ever thought about going to school riding a cow? This photo portrays a group of cowboys in their local bar, enjoying a drink and the company of their colleagues. The image, captured in 1907 in the old town of Tascosa, Texas, gives us a glimpse of everyday life in the American Wild West. Photograph taken in 1900 somewhere in the American Wild West, showing cowboys gathered around a wagon at mealtime. These moments of pause offered a rare relief in the hard life of cowboys who spent long days and nights on the trails, tending cattle and facing the adversities of life on the plains. Men with a large pile of buffalo skulls in the American state of Michigan in 1892. The bison used to roam the plains in numbers up to 60 million, helping sustain indigenous peoples by providing food, clothing, and shelter. Many Native American tribes still consider the bison a sacred and spiritual symbol of their history. Unfortunately, the westward expansion during the 19th century nearly eliminated bison from the Great Plains. This is the panoramic view of the Lakota camp near the Pine Ridge Reservation in 1891. The site has great historical importance because it was here a year earlier that the Wounded Knee Massacre occurred on December 29, 1890. On that tragic day, About 300 Lakota men, women, and children were killed by United States Army soldiers, marking one of the last major conflicts between natives and the government. A group of Apache prisoners rests beside a Southern Pacific train near the Nueces River in Texas. This 1886 photo depicts the moment when, during the Apache Wars, members of the tribe were captured and forcibly taken by soldiers to distant reservations. The Apaches, known for resisting colonization and defending their lands, faced long and difficult journeys, being removed from their homes and communities. A family of Native Americans in a camp in the American state of Montana in 1890. This image portrays the daily life of Native Americans, capturing the essence of their traditions and the resilience of their communities in a period of great transformations and external pressures. Photograph taken in the early 1900s showing people on the main street of the city of Manhattan in the American state of Nevada. The city of Manhattan was founded in 1867 when silver was discovered nearby. When gold was found in 1905, more than 4,000 people moved to the area. Have you ever thought about seeing the beginning of a new city under construction? In Anadarko, on August 8, 1901, the city was in great excitement with an auction underway at the stand in the background. People gathered to buy land and start building their homes and businesses. Bank buildings were quickly emerging, and nearby the beginning of an inn could already be seen, offering a place for new residents and visitors to rest. Apache ghost dancers, with somewhat bizarre hoods and masks, participate in a ritual to invoke spirits. The group included members of various native tribes of the Southwest who believed they could summon spirits from the underworld. Spiritual rituals were an important part of the culture and traditions of the Apaches and other tribes, involving dances and ceremonies to connect participants with the spiritual world and ensure the community's protection and well-being. Photograph taken in 1878 showing a vast shipment of buffalo hides stored in a yard in Dodge City, Kansas. Commercial hunters killed buffalo by the thousands, leaving their carcasses to rot on the plains, a symbol of the rampant exploitation and destruction that accompanied westward expansion.
In 1884, in Tombstone, Arizona, a somber and remarkable event captured the nation's attention: the lynching of John Heath. Heath was accused of involvement in the infamous Bisbee robbery, a crime that resulted in the deaths of several people. The community of Tombstone, boiling with anger and seeking swift justice, took the law into their own hands. Despite Heath being tried and sentenced to life imprisonment, many citizens considered the sentence insufficient given the gravity of his crimes. They formed a lynch mob, removing Heath from his cell and publicly hanging him. This act of mob justice reflects the tension and violence that permeated the Wild West, a time when the law was often enforced by the community in a direct and brutal manner. In Cripple Creek, Colorado, prostitutes and dancers were required to wear aprons over their short dresses to prevent their ankles from being exposed and offending the moral standards of the time. In the photo, these girls and their companions seem to be having fun at Crapper Jack's, one of the most lively spots in town. Workers pose for a photo in celebration of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10, 1869, at Promontory Summit, Utah. This was the first railroad to connect the eastern and western United States and took 6 years to build, employing about 20,000 workers, including 15,000 Chinese immigrants. The woman in the photo came in search of gold, along with her husband. During the gold rush, many took the chance to start a new life, actively contributing to mining, opening businesses like saloons and inns, or offering essential services in predominantly male areas. The city of Perry, Oklahoma received running water for the first time in 1893. Founded a few months earlier, the city was still establishing itself as a new community on the frontier. The water tower being erected in the photo represents an important milestone for the area's initial infrastructure. Members of the Shoshone tribe dance on a Native American reservation in Fort Washakie, Wyoming in 1892 while soldiers watch. At that time, Native dances and ceremonies were often viewed with suspicion by authorities, who considered them a possible sign of resistance.
Even so, the Shoshone and other tribes continued to perform their dances, reaffirming their culture and strengthening their community ties. Detailed view of Main Street in Deadwood, 1877. Deadwood's Main Street was the vibrant heart of the city during the Black Hills Gold Rush in South Dakota. At that time, the street was filled with saloons, hotels, shops, and offices, serving as the nerve center for miners, merchants, and adventurers seeking fortune. In Ouray, Colorado, the scene of a stagecoach stopped in front of the Beaumont Hotel brings to mind stories of the Wild West. The stagecoach played an essential role. It connected Ouray to the rest of the world. It transported people, important news, letters, and everything the city needed to grow and sustain itself. In the early 20th century, in the vast and arid Mojave Desert, an impressive scene captures human innovation and tenacity. A robust traction engine hauling enormous wagons loaded with borax. Borax, a crucial mineral in the manufacturing of soap, glass, and other products, was extracted in remote desert locations where conditions were extreme and logistical challenges immense. A stagecoach crossing the bridge on the Ouray-Silverton Road. This route was known for its natural beauty and for challenging drivers' skills with its narrow and steep paths. Eureka, Colorado, around 1900, was a small town in the mountains, flourishing with an active and diverse community. At this time, the city was a hub of activity, full of people seeking opportunities and a new life in American expansion. Around 1890 in Central City, Colorado, the Independence Day Parade was a vibrant celebration of community spirit and American patriotism, reflecting the traditions and identity of that Wild West era. The local community gathered to participate in and watch the parade, a manifestation of unity and national pride. Central City's streets were transformed into a stage for a colorful display of American flags, decorated wagons, marching bands, and participants dressed in the colors of the flag. In 1879, Leadville, Colorado was at the heart of the Silver Rush, becoming one of the most vibrant and notorious boom towns of the Wild West. Founded at an impressive elevation, the city quickly developed into a center of frenetic activity, with saloons, theaters, and shops sprouting up to meet the needs and entertainment of its growing population. Wall Street in Deadwood, Dakota Territory in 1877. Despite its name, Deadwood's Wall Street had a much wilder and disorderly character, reflecting the tumultuous nature of the city itself, a place where the law was often made by the citizens' own hands, and wealth could be both created and lost in the blink of an eye. In the heart of the Wild West, during the 1880s, Leadville, Colorado stood out as a jewel of the Silver Rush. On the right, the Leadville Courthouse rose as a beacon of law and order amid the bustle and turmoil of daily life characteristic of that era. This building was a symbol of the civility brought to the wildness of the West. Year 1890, Rico, Colorado. This freight wagon used at that time was essential for transporting heavy and essential materials, such as mining tools, supplies, and even ore extracted from the depths of the mountains. Loaded onto wagons pulled by robust draft animals, this equipment was the trade and supply network that sustained the isolated communities of the American West. Main Street in Deadwood. This street was a chaotic mix of saloons, gambling houses, markets, and establishments that catered to the immediate needs of miners, adventurers, and businessmen eager to prosper. Main Street was the stage for success stories and misadventures, housing legendary characters and notorious figures of the West like Wild Bill Hickok. Railroad station in Tonopah, Nevada. This small town was known for its silver mining in the early 20th century. Hundreds of people gathered at the station, showing the peak of silver mining in the region, which attracted investors and workers seeking prosperity. In Tonopah, Nevada, a desert town famous for its mining history, a powerful lightning storm occurred, dramatically illuminating the night sky. In 1889, Rockerville, South Dakota, emerged as an iconic scene of the Wild West, thanks to its adoption of hydraulic mining for gold extraction. In this method, pressurized water was used to literally wash away soil and gravel, revealing the hidden gold. Rockerville quickly transformed, with the landscape being reshaped by the force of water. At the height of the Wild West, a newly manufactured bull gear destined for a large hoist leaving the Fulton Foundry was a spectacle of progress and innovation. The bull gear, with its meticulously molded teeth, was intended to be the heart of a large hoist, essential equipment for lifting ore from the depths of the earth to the surface. Its manufacturing required precision and care, as any failure could result in catastrophic accidents, endangering miners' lives. Cowboys taking a bath after a long cattle drive, a common custom after months on the trail. The cattle drives usually lasted about 3 months, crossing great distances to bring the animals to market. Upon reaching their destination, before entering town to celebrate, they bathed in rivers or water tanks, taking the opportunity to refresh and clean themselves. A group of hunters outside a cabin in Arizona, accompanied by their faithful hunting dogs in 1908. This rustic scene shows the camaraderie and adventurous spirit of the Wild West hunters who faced untamed nature in search of sustenance and challenge. A family of farmers poses for a photograph in 1890 with an iconic windmill in the background representing the perseverance and ingenuity of pioneers in the state of Nebraska. These windmills were essential for pumping water and irrigating the arid lands, symbolizing the triumph of the human spirit over the adversities of the Wild West. Entrepreneurs with a team of 20 mules transporting borax mineral in the relentless Death Valley around 1900. This valley, located in California, is known as one of the most uninhabitable places on Earth, testing to the limit the endurance and ingenuity of those who ventured into its arid lands in search of mineral wealth.
Photograph taken in 1886 showing a hopeful migrant family arriving in the American state of Nebraska.
In 1910, the Wild West was still living the last moments of its legendary era. This photograph, taken in Wild West Bonham, Texas, shows us a solitary cowboy sitting next to his faithful companion, the horse, on a hill. The life of a cowboy was hard and challenging. They spent long periods riding across vast plains, taking care of cattle and facing the dangers of the Wild West. Photograph taken in May 1862 showing a family of settlers posing for a photo outside the farmhouse in Custer County, American state of Nebraska, the OK Corral in Tombstone, Arizona, after a fire in 1882. This location is famous for the shootout on October 26, 1881, involving the Earp brothers and the Outlaws Clanton and McClory. The shootout is one of the most well-known events of the Wild West and marked the city's history. The Homestead Act, enacted in 1862, allowed any American citizen to claim up to 160 acres of public land, provided they built a residence and cultivated the land for at least 5 years. Many families ventured into Nebraska in search of these lands and a better life. An incredible photo from 1872 showing a group of Paiute Indians in Utah. The Paiute are a Native American group that lived in the Great Basin region in the western United States. They were nomadic and depended on hunting, fishing, and gathering fruits and seeds to survive. A group of refugees after the Indigenous massacre that occurred in Minnesota in 1862. The massacre, also known as the Dakota War, was a violent confrontation between the Dakota Sioux people and American settlers, motivated by tensions caused by hunger, broken treaty promises, and poor living conditions on the reservations.
Bill Doolin, a famous outlaw of the American Wild West. He was born in 1858 in the state of Arkansas and is known for founding the Wild Bunch Gang, a group of criminals that robbed banks, trains, and police stations in the states of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. Doolin stood out for his skill in planning robberies and avoiding capture for many years. He was killed on August 24, 1896, at the age of 38, in a shootout with Marshal Heck Thomas near Lawson, Oklahoma. Bill Doolin's body was publicly displayed after his death, which was common at the time as a warning against crime. This is a wanted poster of Bill Doolin, offering a reward of $5,000, a significant amount for the time, for the capture of Doolin, dead or alive. Today, this amount would correspond to $262,500. He is described as a train and bank robber, always armed and dangerous. The poster mentions his height, approximately 6 feet and 2 inches, and physical features, such as light brown hair. These posters were common methods of communication in the Wild West to alert the population and motivate bounty hunters to pursue criminals.